This is a Q Media production.
Welcome to today's episode, where we explore the realms of leadership, delivery, and transformation with our guest, Carolyn Nickels. With a career spanning over 2 decades, Carolyn has been at the forefront of driving customer outcomes across diverse sectors. In this episode, we embark on a journey through pivotal moments of leadership in Carolyn's career, insights into successful mergers and acquisitions, effective management of product and services businesses, and her approach to steering projects across borders. Join us as we delve into Carolyn's journey and gain insights from her wealth of experience and expertise. Hi, Carolyn. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here with you.
Now, you have had an impressive career at some very large companies. Has there been some pivotal moments that have really shaped your career or your leadership style?
There certainly has. Working with some amazing clients. One of the main ones early on in my career is I got to work with a very large international bank in their private banking space, because that was one of the areas I worked in, to help them design a product end to end. And I'm not just talking the technology, because that's what we are, a product company. It was how the product was actually going to work in the marketplace as well. And it's very rare that you get that opportunity. And it was an investment product. And so the experience of working with their marketing people, how they're going to sell it, the investment people on the back end of how they're going to make decisions about where they invest people's money, are really important in the market. And you got to see the end-to-end process. And yes, I was going and building the technology that ran it and drove it, but seeing that was just a very pivotal moment in my career, and one that I still obviously remember to this day, because it was very early on in my career.
So your manager came to you and said, hey, go run with this? How did it work?
Me and one of the founders of the company worked with the client to do it. So I got picked on the team. The client was based out of Singapore. So we spent a lot of time up in Singapore, working with them very closely, and all the algorithms to make it go and work. And I was just privileged enough to be part of that team.
That is a really great experience, especially for someone who's young and new into business. Now, if we look at your LinkedIn, it looks like your first big job was for about 14 years at one company, and that's pretty much unheard of these days. So can you walk through what that actually looked like for you?
Certainly. It was actually closer to 20. I'm showing my age a little bit there with that one. It started out with a small firm in Perth. I am from Western Australia. And I started directly out of university with them, and we were bought by a company called SunGard. And SunGard, for those that don't know, is all about acquisitions, how they grow. They're now owned by FIS. But while we were there, we were an acquisition, and they probably did close to 400 acquisitions whilst I was there. And they're across every vertical in the financial services space, from core banking, treasury, capital markets, and wealth, which is the area I was in. And so with those acquisitions came opportunity after opportunity. I did this massive project up in Singapore. Other opportunities came up. They restructured every couple of years, which was always interesting, which brought out the opportunities for me to start out as a developer, but run teams, set up the Sydney office, run whole segments for them, and work for the presidents in the US. And you're right, it doesn't happen these days. Those companies aren't really around, but it did give me a good breadth of the end-to-end process of working with clients and selling products, and that was an invaluable experience.
So, we hear a lot about these acquisitions and mergers, and, I suppose for the people who are already in the organization, what does that mean? Like, obviously you stayed, you enjoyed it. What are the things that the business did right to keep you on and keep you engaged?
The things they did right was the fact that they gave you those opportunities to actually to grow, to move within the segments, as they were called, within the organisation, to give you the opportunity to learn new products, work with amazing people, because every acquisition brought different people in, and obviously altered the culture slightly within the organisation as well. A lot of time, because I'd been there towards the end of my time with them, such a long time, I was helping those organisations and some of those people kind of work out where to go for what within SunGard world and navigate the SunGard world, because some of them, the culture clash was there a bit.
So how did you manage that? The culture clashes can be huge. They can have massive impact. both for the company, that's being acquired and for the company. I mean, it sounds like you did some hand-holding, some helping. What are some of the other tips and tricks you'd share?
The good thing is during the M&A process, and I was involved in one of the M&A acquisitions that SunGard did, it's actually a factor that they looked at and what is that fit. And most of the time they did get it right. But when they didn't, it was trying to work with the people coming in, and it was more about guiding them of, no, we do it this way and this is why, or yes, go and make that recommended change because that would be a better way for the organisation to do things. And this is who you go speak to about it, by the way, because I knew most of the people within SunGard. So it was, hand-holding, as you said, but it was also advice and a bit of mentoring that went on in there. And a lot of times I was probably junior than some of them, but it was that experience within the company that they listened to me and took on that advice.
Did it ever not go well?
It was one. There was one that didn't quite go well. It was a French company that got bought, and the culture was a bit too much between the two organisations. And so, that one didn't necessarily work out that well.
We all have a couple of those ones.
We do. But it was a learning, and the company took that on as a learning of how do we do that better next time.
So all of the businesses you've worked for have been product and service businesses where you're servicing generally massive clients. So, what are some of the big things that, if somebody's here is listening, is working at a service company, what are some of the big things they should know about getting in and navigating with these businesses?
So the one thing to remember is at the end of the day, they're all product companies, as much as the services go along with them, because you need the services to implement the product, do the change, etc. At the end of the day, they're product companies and they're after that annual recurring revenue. And so your job when you come in is about protecting that annual recurring revenue and helping it grow. So that means a successful project, a successful implementation, making sure the customer gets success, and then working with the customer success managers or the account managers to highlight any opportunities to them of how you can make your product more sticky within that organisation. When you're talking a company like SunGard, it's what other products, because as I said, it was every vertical. So it's what else? Do they need treasury? Do they need capital markets? Do they need something else? And helping them expand to increase that ARR. So you do have to remember at the end of the day, it is about that number, not about the services revenue that they're getting. That's just the cherry on top.
So, I think as a customer buying, sometimes it can almost feel that almost becomes too obvious, right? Because we've got a vendor selling and I know they need to make their targets and I feel that. So how can we reduce that? Like, how can we actually look at maybe looking at how to make a customer successful or looking at their pain points? How do we make it so it doesn't feel like it's always just about ARR?
So that's the services team's job, is to work with the customer. So that's what I've done for a large amount of my career, is work with my team to understand, okay, what does success look like for the organisation? And you may think, I've worked with all of the top financial services organisations. You may think that it's the same for all of them. It's not. So it is going in and understanding what does success look like? What are the outcomes they need to achieve? Is it regulatory? Have they failed an audit? What is the reason? What's the motivation behind them wanting to do this? And then making sure that you're hitting those outcomes and that success for them so that they are successful and therefore they want to continue working with you and partnering with you, because if they're successful, then you're going to be successful at the end of the day.
So once you get into these organizations, I would imagine that the first thing you need to do is establish trust with them, right? They get vendors coming in at them every day. Are there any tips, tricks, things that you do to help establish trust quickly within your clients' organizations?
Under promise, over deliver. And I know that seems really simple when you say it, but it's not. It is building that relationship, and it's like building any relationship. And what you've also got to remember is the team that you may have worked with during the procurement and the buying is not necessarily the team you're working with for the implementation. So you potentially have to start over again in building those relationships. But you generally go in and you have to obviously build out a project plan and deliverables and what's everyone going to go do. And that project kickoff is probably one of the most crucial elements that you have in building that first trust and getting that right. So everyone on the team understands, okay, I'm responsible for this, they're going to deliver this, and this is what success is going to look like. And then just going and delivering to it and making sure that you do not miss a milestone. because the minute you do, that's when you start impacting trust. And that goes either side. So if a client misses one, trust on the vendor side or the partner side is also broken. So it's making sure that everyone does. Now, look, I'm making it sound really easy and that projects are smooth. They're not. So you are going to hit that time. And it's how have you built that relationship up on both sides to then ensure that those tough times are not as tough as they need to be to get through them.
I'd like to dig deeper into this. So that actual project life cycle, because as we say, we often hear it from the client side, oh, the vendor didn't deliver and the vendor this and the vendor that. Well, there's two sides to every story, isn't there? So let's even just start at the beginning. We've got our project kickoff. What are the core key elements, the structure, what's needed in that kickoff to really get the project going?
So who's who in the zoo, so to speak? So who are your main stakeholders that you're delivering to? Who's the program director on their side, the project manager, the SMEs, the testers, on the vendor side, the equivalent of who when things go wrong or when you need something, who do you go talk to? And calling out and making sure you've literally got all of their contact information on that slide. I'm not joking, that's what we do. It's then, okay, what does success look like? So why are we doing this? So that everyone's on the same page. Because as I said, during the procurement process, some of those people were not involved, so they don't necessarily know why. It's calling out why are we doing this and therefore what does success look like so that they know what they're working towards. And then it's walking through, okay, in this phase we're doing this and this is the outcome that's going to be achieved, and just then walking through each of the phases and reminding each party of, okay, customer, you're responsible to go write your test cases and your plans, and if there's a migration involved, talking through that because they're always fun. And on the vendor side, again, this is what we're going to go do and this is when we're going to do it by, and then that's what's in the deck. And then everyone walking away from that completely clear is the goal of what's going to happen. And if they're not completely clear, your job hasn't been done and you need to go back through it again.
So for a client who's pulling in a vendor and they maybe haven't done a huge implementation of a big system, what would you say would be their role? What are the things that they should know that they should be doing? How often should they be meeting with you? How do they know when an escalation is happening? How do they know if something's gone wrong? How do they know something's gone right? Describe that role.
So we, in my experience and how I oversee projects, is we will meet weekly with them. And have a weekly project meeting talking through literally, okay, you've said that you're going to be doing this week. Has it been done? Great if it has. If not, why not? When is it now going to be done? The same for our side. And so that everyone knows. And any risks, you keep a risk register, okay? There could be a risk if you're talking migrations as an example. Any issues getting data out of other systems or quality of data is a massive risk in any migration project. So you're calling them out. So you know that you may hit that at some point and therefore you're putting mitigation plans in place around it. You then would have depending on the length of the project, a monthly or a quarterly steering committee where you would take, okay, what's the overall picture of where we're at to the senior stakeholders and any decisions that need to be made. Because the decisions, change requests come up in projects all the time, scope changes, needs change. And so what are those decisions that need to be made that would go to a steering committee as well? If you're running it in an agile, you'd have daily stand-ups as well. So it kind of depends on how you're running it, the project. A lot of the financial organisations out there tell you they're agile, they're kind of a bit in between. And so you would probably still run the daily stand-ups just to make sure that everyone's still accountable and that you're having those check-ins and everyone knows, and then the weekly one to just summarise it.
So that sounds like a great standard project when everything goes right. I don't know that any of us have been on one where everything goes right. So some of the big ones that seem to come up, things like missing stakeholders, right? So you had everyone in your project kickoff from the beginning and then you're rolling it out and suddenly someone else comes from out of the woodwork. Is that something that has come up in your project? And if so, how do you deal with that one?
That one comes up. The other one is a change in stakeholder because people don't always necessarily stay in their roles either. It can go multiple ways, but generally one of two. You bring them up to speed and you educate them about why the solution was bought and what it's trying to achieve and what outcomes they're going to get for the business, and they buy into it and everyone moves on. The second way that it can go is you've explained all of that and they're still questioning why they bought that solution because they weren't part of the decision-making process, and depending on how high up they are, the success or failure can affect their career. And so you will find that some of them will question even further, which could put the whole project on hold for a period of time. That one is harder to get out of. And again, it can either you eventually get them over the line and you progress. It could be that the whole project is cancelled. I have been in both situations in my lifetime.
Same.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Neither of them is pleasant, but they are both reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no point in denying it. It's going to happen. No project, as we've said, is ever going to be completely successful. You're going to hit issues, and it's how you deal with those issues that is a true test of that strength of that partnership between the customer and the vendor.
And the other word you mentioned a few minutes ago was change request. Yes, the bane of the existence, because suddenly a change request also comes with a quote. Now, how is a client supposed to manage that? I mean, do we look at setting budgets bigger because we think there might be change requests? How do we approach that to make sure that everybody's happy at the end?
So again, there's a couple of ways you can go through that one. I generally, if I'm involved in the procurement process, and I generally am because I'm running that part of the business, I will advise them to put budget aside, that things are going to change. And most of the experienced program directors on their side will put budget aside because they know their experience tells you exactly what we're saying is you're going to hit change requests. And so therefore they cater for them. The other way you can do change requests is you can do a swap. So you could pull something out and put something in. It would depend on priorities within the business. So that's one way to make it cost neutral. I have raised $0 change requests before. And that is more around change in timelines or change in a technology that it really doesn't have a cost impact. So there are such things as zero cost change requests. They're less controversial, obviously. But then at the end of the day, there may have to be an agreement between the vendor and the client of if they don't have the budget, how urgent and important is it, and does the vendor then wear the cost? And that has occurred multiple times in my career as well.
That sounds challenging. What about, so as we get to the end of the project and we have to do some user acceptance testing, that is the point where we're going to have to start getting a lot more stakeholders involved from the client side. Do you run into challenges where you don't have enough people from the client side, between user acceptance testing or attending training, all of that? Like, how do we make sure we have enough people buying in at that point?
Yeah, I've hit it quite a lot where even at kickoff you're saying to them, you've got to go write your test cases and your test plan and you need to be putting all of that in place. I have had projects where the client has taken probably about 2 months to go and find someone to go and test the solution, which you think is hilarious because you've known since the kickoff that you need someone. But again, we don't necessarily know what's happening on the client side. And in this situation, they had quite a lot of turnover and therefore they didn't necessarily have the resources. So that can impact as well. But you also want to make sure that those people are there at kickoff. So that they know they've got to do it. And they were, in this instance, they just happened to have left the organisation. So that causes delays in projects. And again, there's not a lot you can do about it. We can't, as a vendor, my view is, and this is my view, I can't test a system for a client. Clients ask us all the time. And my response is, you have to accept this because you have to use it every day, not me. And so therefore you have to go and do the testing. And so they kind of look at you funny for a little while and then they go, okay. And then they go off and do it because I can say that it works because my company's written it, but you've got to go test it and prove it to yourself that it works.
Do you want your team to achieve peak performance? Well, then it's time for a change. Welcome to Leading Edge. We're not about traditional training. We're about transformation. Our outcomes-based leadership development programs focus on real results through behavior change and mindset shifts. We customize programs tailored to your team's needs, packed with cutting-edge content based on neuroscience and positive psychology. We run engaging workshops, personalized coaching sessions, and practical exercises to ensure an enriching experience for your team. How does it work? We dive deep. We start with surveys to identify strengths and gaps, which helps us to design a bespoke program designed for your team's success. With our approach, progress is inevitable. Our expertly facilitated workshops and coaching sessions ensure growth, and the results speak for themselves. Are you ready to take the leap? It's simple. First, choose your program. We have 5 to choose from, or you can customize a program to suit your team's needs. Second, Pick your duration. We deliver 3, 6, or 12-month programs. This way, we can reinforce the learnings over time to drive real change. And finally, plan with us. Each team is different, so we make sure that what we're delivering is exactly what you need. Let's unlock your team's potential together. Contact us today, and let's start this journey to transform your team to achieve greatness. So the client side will have some sort of a project team that you'll work with, so project managers, business analysts, testers, etc. Do you often work with change management? And if so, how does that work for you as a vendor?
So on a number of projects, we have worked with change management. It depends on obviously how big the change is within the organisation. We've had a number where a change in system meant their end users had to do something completely different and use systems that they've never used before. So yes, we work with change management and help them understand what the change is, what the impact is, what does it mean so that they can go and roll it out. Sometimes we do it for the companies as well. So we will go and be the change manager and help them roll that change out within the organisation. But most of the very large organisations I've worked with have their own change management team.
So we've been talking about projects kind of in general, but I want to get into the nitty-gritty. I want to hear about some of the big ones that you've done. So tell me, have a think. What's the biggest project you've done, really impactful, that's really been kind of a big marker on your career?
A great question. So one of the biggest ones I've done, and it's biggest because of its impact, as you asked, and it was across 4 countries. And so it was rolling out retirement savings for a large international bank, Standard Chartered Bank, across Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia and London. So it's very interesting. So the reason for it was those countries had recently at that point in time brought in that it was now mandatory to save for your retirement. A lot of countries didn't. Australia obviously did at that point in time, a lot didn't. And so the change that was brought in, and there was no such thing back then as SaaS, it was all on premise. So that meant trips and installing, but also going and working with the teams for them to understand the product. So one, they had to understand because they'd never worked with what is a retirement product before. So it's helping them understand what does this mean, as well as implementing a brand new system of how do I go and manage this retirement savings for these customers that are coming in. And it was mandatory, so everyone had to sign up. They obviously didn't all have to sign up for Standard Chartered Bank, but they all had to sign up. And then you throw in doing it in 4 different countries with 4 different cultures that go with that to implement it was, again, a real challenge, but really interesting and was very educational for myself.
So let's dig in a little bit deeper. So if we were going to classify, this kind of change, it sounds like you have system change, but process change. Sounds like across border, maybe some cultural change. Let's dig a little bit deeper into each one of them and what that actual impact was and how you dealt with it.
So system change is again, helping them test and train them on the system. And the training links into the culture differences as well, because again, this was earlier on in my career, and I'm me. I'm a Westerner. I'm fairly blunt and direct, and the head of the private bank sat me down before I went to Malaysia and said, "Carolyn, you can't be you." I'm like, "What do you mean I can't be me?" You're going into a country that is 63% Islamic. You cannot be you because everything is very different there. And I had to think about that for a while and what that meant, because this change wasn't about me. And that's what change is all about. It's not necessarily about the person that's trying to implement it. It's about the people that have to live with it on the other side. And so I really had to change my style of how I trained and how I worked with these teams about to understand the system and understand the product. And that was a defining moment in my career, and realising not everyone out there is the same, and how I interact, whether I like it or not, it's not about me, it's about them. And I have to alter how I operate to make sure that they get the outcomes and the success that they want.
How did you do that?
It took a lot of looking at myself and honestly biting my tongue in a lot of situations because in those cultures, how women are treated is very different than what we are used to be fairly honest about it. And so there were times I really had to bite my tongue and not say anything, and that was very hard. But at the end of the day, we got the outcome that we wanted and it worked. So, yeah.
So you got there and you got the outcome in the end that you were looking for.
We did. And then going into Hong Kong was a different culture again, a bit easier. They were more used to Westerners being there. But again, getting them to ask questions. So what we built in was little quizzes into the training to kind of check how they were going with their learning, because they're less likely to go and ask questions. And similar in Singapore, where London is similar to us. So that one was a lot easier to go and implement there.
So obviously culturally you had some challenges. What were some of the other challenges that you faced in this?
The other challenges were, it was a steep learning curve for them because it was a brand new product that not necessarily just from a technology, but everyone was being forced to save for retirement, which isn't a bad thing. Don't get me wrong on that one. But they had not kind of dealt with that kind of product before, and that investment product. So it was also the challenge of getting their heads around, this is something new, and how do we go and do it? And we don't like change. We're humans. We don't like change. And they didn't like it either. And, well, I don't do this today, so why have I got to do it tomorrow? Well, this is what you need to do so that you get the outcome for your customers who are investing with you on this. So that was one of the challenges. And look, the people in the private bank were also very supportive and helpful in doing. This was a true partnership between a vendor and a customer in rolling this out, because they knew the challenges that were going to be faced and they bought into making sure that it was successful.
So was it the leaders inside the client side that actually drove that messaging, made sure they got everybody on their teams on board with this? So it kind of alleviated some of the pushback that you might have had as you were pushing the products out.
Correct, because it was coming from the head of the private bank that we need to go do this. It's been mandated. So you kind of need to get on board. And so you're correct, those messages were coming from the top, which certainly helped. When they don't come from the top and you're trying to push change through, I'm sure as you're aware, it's a lot harder. It is like pushing rocks uphill, but you get there eventually, but it's just a lot harder.
Yeah, product-led changes are never going to work.
No, and this was regulation. So there was no choice in the matter, unless they didn't want to, I guess, work in that part of the business and they didn't want to offer them, which would have, from a return on investment and a revenue perspective, would have hurt their business if they weren't part of a mandatory retirement and they didn't offer it to their customers. They would have lost customers over it.
So it was kind of somewhere a mix between the carrot and the stick, wasn't it? Because they had to have, it sounds like the executives were driving it with a carrot. This is a great thing for you. But at the same time, if you don't do it, we're in trouble.
Yeah, because they would not be a full service offering to their customers. And so therefore they'd lose customers. You can kind of see where that would go in terms of jobs and the rest of it. So that was kind of the stick part of it. It wasn't ever said, but it was kind of there underlying.
And did you find that the messaging was the same across all of those 4 countries, or did they have to adjust it?
Again, similar to me having to adjust my style, they had to adjust the messaging. They were coming in at different times. There were some slightly different rules around the retirement and the investing in each of those countries. And so the messaging was slightly different. The main themes were the same, but how it was delivered, and obviously language came into it, because you would have had Cantonese in there and you would have had different languages in there as well, came into it as well.
If this was a government-initiated exercise, did you have to work with the government around that or understand what their messaging was? How did that come into play?
The client took care of most of that. So we did see what, for example, the Singaporean government was putting out in terms of what the rules were, because we obviously had to go and see if we had to alter the system to manage for any of those rules. So we saw, but no, we didn't actually have to meet with the regulators in this case. The client did most of that.
Cool. Sounds like a really fun project.
It really was. I got to find out some of the coolest places to eat in Singapore and Hong Kong and Malaysia. Got to spend some time in Jersey, a little island off the UK, which was an amazing place. So, yes.
Good. That's probably the best part. Let's move forward in your career a bit. So since then, you have grown lots of teams. And now, your last role, vice president of a big organization and having huge teams under you. I want to talk a little bit about your leadership style and sort of where that's come from and how you approach leadership.
So where it's come from, I wasn't always good at it. And I don't think any of us start out being really good as a manager or a leader. Early on in my career, I wasn't fantastic at it. And I learned from those experiences though. And that's the main thing, is to learn when you're not doing something well. My view is I am there to make my team successful. So if my team isn't successful and they're not progressing in their careers, they're not delivering outcomes for customers, then I'm not doing my job. If I'm not removing the roadblocks that they need removed to be able to go and do their job, I'm not being successful at my job either. So I don't micromanage. My belief is we hire smart people and they know how to do the jobs on the whole that we hire them for. However, if they put the hand up, I need help, then I'm all over it, because that's what I would expect and hope from any leader or manager that I have as well. So that is kind of my style, and I've had staff that are now CIOs in companies and are doing really well. So something works in all of that.
So if you've had people who have gone into those sorts of roles, you've obviously done something to help them, encourage them. What are some of the things that you can do as a leader?
So I meet with my team members weekly or fortnightly. It depends on how many direct reports I have at any one point in time, and ensuring that they understand where they want to get to or help them understand. So I've had staff members, because I've generally run services and support teams. I've had staff move from support into professional services and become project managers and be really successful, because that's what they shared with me they want to go do. So it's also getting out of the staff what they want to go do. And sometimes they don't know. So they need to go try a few things out to work out. I've certainly had a few in my career, didn't know. So we had them working on various different things to figure out where they wanted to go, and then finally got them there. And they're now doing what they want to do. It's also, everyone has something else going on in their life besides work. And it's being, whether it's empathetic, whether it's being mindful of that they may be having a really crappy day and it's got nothing to do with the company or you. It's just that something else is going on with them. And they may or may not want to share. And that's their choice. And at some point they may choose to share it, and then you can help them. And most of the people that have all worked for me know that they can share it, and I will do what I can to help them. I can't solve half of it for them, but they know that they've got someone that they can go talk to. And it's being that, I guess, that human as part of a leader, because you have to bring that side into it, has helped me be successful.
Sounds like that requires a huge amount of trust. Is there anything you do to build that quickly?
I'm going to say I'd be me, which isn't probably the answer you're looking for. It's listening to them. So in a one-on-one, they will talk more than me. I always get them to go first of, okay, what can I help solve for you? What's on your list? And then making sure that I go and help them and solve anything. So again, similar to project principles and building trust with a organisation, it's under promise, over deliver. It's making sure that you're doing the things you say you're going to do, and showing the team in your actions, not just your words, that you are there to help them. And because a lot of people can talk the talk, it's about showing up and actually delivering on that, in my experience, is what the difference is to have a very loyal and supportive team that will go and do amazing things for customers because you go and ask them to, because you've built that trust up, as you've said.
So we've got teams that people manage, but we also hear about high-performing teams. So can you tell us the difference between a normal team and a high-performing team, and how we actually get them from one to the other?
Yeah, that one's a lot harder, to be honest, to do, because everyone's got to want to be there and you've got to have the similar goals. You've got to have that trust. And it's not just the trust for the leader, it's a trust for every single person, across every single person in that team. And that can be hard sometimes, because there's a whole lot of different personalities in there. I've worked with a couple of high-performing teams, but honestly, not that many. And I would like to see, and maybe it's just my experience, I'd like to see more out there. It's the collaboration across the teams as well. That's certainly, I've tried to make sure that there is always collaboration in the teams that I work with, but not just within the team. It's also within, if you're working with product or engineering or marketing or any other part of the organisation, that there's that collaboration, again, to try and get a high-performing organisation there as well. The Celebrate Success one is the one which is also important to have a high-performing team, is probably one that, in my experience, we haven't been as good at. We're probably good at looking at what hasn't gone so well in the, whether you call them a post-implementation review or a review of it. We're not so great at celebrating successes. So my advice would be celebrate them more. In one of the teams I was working with, putting in a solution at AMP, at the end of every sprint, which was 2 weeks, there'd be a theme for a lunch, and that was how it was celebrated. And we got amazing, between us and the company, got amazing results out of that one because we were celebrating that success. It was as simple as a lunch, and it was themed, but everyone loved it, and therefore everyone worked really hard during the sprint to get to that lunch.
Brings up an interesting question, one that I've been thinking about recently, about how do people get rewarded? Because some people would love the lunch. Some people would want to be on stage and get an award. Some people don't want you to say anything, just pat them on the back. So less of a team, but more of an individual. Like, how do you address people and giving them the rewards that they deserve?
It goes back to understanding what motivates them and drives them. And it goes to building the trust with them and understanding that about them. And then you can work out, okay, no, this person really, you're right, doesn't want a lunch, but if you went and gave them a voucher for them to go and take their partner out for dinner, they would much prefer it. So it is working that out on an individual basis, and it takes a lot of work. And then it's working with the organisation, the HR departments, etc., to ensure that you can go and do those things, because there's also that factor of, can you actually go and do it? The awards on the stages are generally a little bit harder ones to do, but there's always ways to reward. And a lot of organisations that I've worked for have internal recognition programs. And so you can go, if you're working with someone from another team, go and recognise them and for their assistance and whatever they've done for you as well.
So when it comes to having a team and getting outcomes, how do we measure success? Particularly if you're delivering to a client, how do we know we've done it well? If we're doing an internal project, how do we measure success? Are there any specific KPIs or measurement that you put in place to know that you've done well?
Again, it's the same as, in my view, the same as what you do with the customer. Again, what is our outcomes and what is the definition of success? Is success internally that we've delivered this customer within 6 months, they're live and in production? So that could be, and so you've got your KPIs there and your goals you're working towards. So it could be different, but it's defining them. And I guess that is quite customer centric. But again, for the team to be successful, are we hitting those? Our processes repeatable? So, or do every customer that we come across, do we have to go redo the training material or the kickoff deck? And that's just not scalable. And so it's what processes are in place, and therefore are we being successful as a team as well? You've then got your general ones of, are you hitting your revenue targets, your utilisation targets, etc. But it's also, are the team being promoted? I would put as another one. So are they moving, say, from a consultant to a senior consultant? And then to a principal consultant, for example. So are they progressing in their career because they're learning would be another one that I'd focus on.
This has been really interesting. To finish up today, I would like to know, do you have any tips, advice for any change leaders out there, things that they should be doing to really make their team sing, their project sing, to make it all work?
I'd go back to what I said when I was working across the 4 countries. I'd keep in mind it's not about you. And you may be the one leading it and it's your KPI to be successful, but it's generally not about you. You don't have to live with that change. The people that you're working with and rolling that change out, it's about them. So it's about figuring out what is going to make them accept the change and adopt the change and be successful with that, to me is the key to go figure out and then go and help them deliver on that.
I think that's great advice. Carolyn, thank you so much for being here today. This has been great, really interesting chat. And I hope our listeners reach out to you. Where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Carolyn Nickels.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe. Taking just 2 minutes to leave a review on Apple Podcasts would mean the world. Your reviews play a vital role in expanding the reach of this podcast and making a bigger impact.